So on the day that I'm recording this, I went to an outdoor yoga class at Bayfront Park. And I've been doing that for weeks and it's been fantastic. But yesterday, when we got there and went to roll out our mats, all the good, anything resembling a good space was already gone. And most of the rest of the grassy area that we were using was just like churned up mud hunky bath crappage. And so we were kind of like, oh, we wanted to be in the shady part, not the sun. So we'll just use this tiny bit of grass over here. Unrolled the mats, got going, and realized we were being swarmed by new hatchlings of flies. They were little and they were persistent and there were kabillions of them. So this class that was supposed to be all about like, I'm vibing, I'm calm, I'm good. Like within 2 minutes, I was like, so we decided we should get out of the muddy part and the shade. So we went around, dragged our mats, super obnoxious, and we got to the sunny part. It was drier. That was a good news. We got to the sunny part, unrolled, and it was better, but still the flies. Like I'd be in downward dog and I would just look at my mat. There would be like 15, 20 flies. Some of them still alive, some of them dying. So for the whole hour, all I could think was, this is terrible. This sucks. I hate this. I wish it would be over. Perhaps this is how you're feeling about your research paper right now. My clumsy attempt to draw a connection. What I really want to say before I go over some tips that I have for you about drafting your research paper is this. It should be hard, this research paper. If you're doing it right, it should take longer than you expected. You should find yourself kind of lurching one direction and then another, where you start with an idea, you find a source, or you look for sources, maybe you read some things and you're like, I didn't know what I was talking about. I got to rethink this whole thing. Good. You know what that is? That's learning. That's being willing to evolve and adjust. And really just finding good sources takes hours. Writing well takes hours. I can spend 5, 10 hours writing a paragraph. I can spend more than an hour writing a single sentence if I'm weighing every word and thinking, no, take something from the end, put it at the start. How do I? So if you are feeling kind of like, wow, I've written papers before, I've written research papers before. Why is this so hard this time? Why is it taking me 20 hours? I thought it was going to take me an hour and a half. Sometimes things don't turn out as you expect them to. Sometimes you go into a thing with thinking you have an idea of what's going to happen, and it's completely not that. So a research paper is a fly-ridden class at Bayfront Park. Thank you. That's all I have to say. No, I'm just kidding. But now I'm going to switch so that you can see the document that is also within the class, but I thought I would just kind of read through it because I know sometimes it's helpful if you hear things orally instead of just having to read more stuff off the screen, okay? All right, chumlies, let's get right into the tips that I have for you for this very specific assignment I've given you in this class, the research paper. Number one, you may have heard this before, can never say it too many times, so I will say it again. Please start your paper with an attention getter, with a hook. Please don't ask a question. I almost just want to say don't ask a question, but some of you might be able to handle asking a question in a way that's not a, did you ever wonder why Nabisco wafers are so soft? You know, don't do the did you ever wonder kind of question. Partially because don't use the word you in your paper at all, or your, or the second person at all, please. But that opening question thing, just it's asking us as the readers to give you a smart aleck kind of answer, right? Because I'm always like, no, I never did wonder. So instead, you could start with a personal anecdote. It's the only place in your entire paper where you are allowed to use I, or tell any sort of story from your life, or draw on your own lived experience. It also establishes you as having some connection to the topic, so it gives you some credibility. as the author. So you could start with a personal anecdote. You could start with a startling statistic or an arresting quotation from an authority. But start with something where your readers think, ooh, I want to know more once they've read those first few sentences. You've got one chance to snag your readers and make them want to read on, so don't waste those first few sentences. Get in there and get us, okay? Secondly, in your introduction, once you have gotten our attention, then you got to explain your topic a little bit. So assume that your readers have no acquaintance with this topic. You need to explain it to us. And also, this is a persuasive paper, so you could set up what is the tension in terms of something controversial or something that people argue about when it comes to this topic. We need to know the different points of views and sides. The last sentence of the introduction should be your thesis statement. And that is where you assert the stance or the opinion that you will be arguing throughout your paper. So make sure when you read your thesis that you can imagine some people might read it and disagree with you. If there's no opposition, if it's impossible to disagree with you, then you need to beef up the opinion that's going on in that thing, okay? All throughout your paper, please use quotes, paraphrases, and summaries from the sources that you've found in your research. And whenever you use anything, not just a direct quotation, but whenever you use an idea or information that you paraphrase or summarize and put into your own words, you still need to follow it with a parenthetical citation. So those parentheses where you give us the author's last name, if there's a page number with the source, you do a space and then the page number. You don't put P period, nothing like that. It's just like Smith space 46. And then you end parentheses, end the period, and the period for the end of the sentence. Also, whenever you use a direct quotation, you can't just plop it into your text to stand by itself. You need to lead into it. Perhaps you want to use an acknowledgement phrase, you know, according to, what name do we want to use today? Muriel Baker, comma, and then quote. So you can do an according to kind of thing. Otherwise, you can just write a sentence where you embed the quote into it. But you should never be just dropping those quotes in as though they can stand by themselves. They need to be integrated into your own sentences. Thank you very much. I give you some examples on the page here of a quote with a lead-in versus a badness and then a quote with a lead-in. So the bad one would be in the paper, I really love the Green Man Festival, period. It's such a grooving scene. Parenthetical citation, kudos. Indeed, the vibe at the festival is unique. So that's not actually a proper use of a quote because the quote's standing there all by itself. You want to see it better? Here we go. I really love the Green Man Festival. One reason for its appeal is that, quote, it's such a groovin' scene. Parenthetical citation, Wavy Gravy 34. So you got to work that into a sentence that you've written. Okay, thank you. Please also be sure that you follow up every quotation with some sort of reflection, analysis, summary, interpretation of what was in the quote. So you should never provide the quote and then just move on. Put another way, a quotation should never be the last sentence of a sentence, because that would mean that you've left us hanging and you're moving on to your next point. And we're like, but yeah, you gave us the quote, and what are we supposed to make of it? So you can think of it, sometimes we refer to it as like a hamburger bun or a sandwich model where you give a lead in, there's your piece of bread, give the quote, it's the juicy meat or the portobello mushroom, and then you give your follow-up or summary, which is the other piece of bread on the other side. Okay. Number 5 here says you can have a title page or not. It is not required by MLA. Doesn't matter to me. I mean, if you want a title page, you do you. You should have a creative original title. Okay. So for example, if your paper is about bats, and why would it be? But if your paper is about bats, please don't entitle your paper Bats. Give me some juice to that thing. Zhuzh your title a little bit, would ya? And how about Winged Wonders of the Night? Yeah, that's better. Imagine that your paper is going to be so fantastic. It gets published, it gets printed, it gets put on all the shelves at the bookstore, and you want the customers at the bookstore to be like, they're going to walk right past bats, right? But if they see Winged Wonders of the Night, they're going to, what's that? I should buy that. So think of your title as something that needs to intrigue strangers. Okay. Number 6 just tells you that your paper should be 2,000 to 2,500 words long, and that means just the text of your paper. It doesn't include the works cited. It doesn't include all the heading stuff. So just from the introduction through the conclusion, do a word count, and that's your word range. Okay, thank you. We're looking for double spacing. We're looking for 1-inch margins. We're looking for 12-point font. You can choose the font. Please don't use wingdings. Please, for the love of all that's holy, don't use Comic Sans. Okay, glad we've established that. An easily readable font would be another way to put it. I'm going to scroll now. Remember, we do our anti-nausea pill now. Oh, here comes the scroll. All right. If you end up using any quotations that are longer than 4 lines in length, they should be set up and formatted a little differently as block quotes. There are some pages I give to you there in your Veit and Gould textbook, but basically you give a lead in, and then your long quote would be indented. And it would have regular margins on the right-hand side, but on the left it's indented. And then also you should notice when you have the parenthetical citation at the end of that quotation, bizarrely, the period comes before the citation instead of after it, like it does everywhere else. Please start every body paragraph with a transition. Please do not end body paragraphs with transitions into the next point. End body paragraphs with sentences of summary. Tying into the next one here. But as you finish a paragraph, close off that point. Then when you begin the next paragraph, you can provide a transition that helps us flow into the next idea. So, you know, in addition to whatever you just said, there also is, and then you raise your next point. Number 9 here, I just hit on a second ago. Definitely try to end each body paragraph with a sentence of summary. Usually it's good if it echoes the topic sentence that opened that body paragraph so that you kind of keep things all focused around one main point. It gives you coherence. And you also there can use the topic sentences and the summary sentences to drive home the opinion that you express in your thesis statement so that it's clear how you're proving that opinion all the way, every step throughout your paper. On your Works Cited page, which is a separate page after your last page of text, you should center the words Works Cited, and you should alphabetize all the entries on the page. The entire page should be double spaced, not just between entries, but the entries themselves. The whole page is double spaced. Number 11, please constantly check yourself to see that you are in fact creating a persuasive paper and you're not just being informational. Okay, so you should be trying to convince your audience all the way along. Each body paragraph should be providing the reasons for your opinion and not just, here's another thing to tell you about bats. And again, why are we even writing about bats? Okay, and then number 12, in as much as it's possible, I would urge you to enjoy yourself. Ding.